I unlocked the door and stepped inside, greeted by the familiar scent of home, yet something was off. The house was too quiet. I paused, listening to the echo of my footsteps on the hardwood floor, expecting the usual hum of activity, the sound of Sarah in the kitchen, or music drifting from the living room. But today, there was nothing, just a heavy, oppressive silence. I frowned, glancing around the foyer, noting how undisturbed everything seemed. The shoes we usually kicked off carelessly by the door were neatly lined up, untouched. The house didn't feel lived in at that moment, it felt frozen in time. "Sarah?" I called out, but no response came. She wasn't supposed to be here, I reminded myself. She'd mentioned meeting some friends earlier, though I couldn't recall the exact details. It didn't matter. I had the place to myself. Shaking off the unease, I shrugged out of my jacket and tossed it onto the arm of the couch. My body ached from the long week at work, and all I wanted was to unwind. I glanced at the clock, barely past 4. Much earlier than I usually made it home, which probably explained why the silence felt so unfamiliar. I headed upstairs, stripping off my shirt as I went, eager for a long, hot shower to wash away the lingering stress. Passing our bedroom, I noticed the bed still unmade from this morning, Sarah's side a mess of tangled sheets, while mine remained neatly pulled back. It was a small contrast, one I'd noticed countless times, but today, it felt significant. Maybe it was just me, tired and paranoid. I tossed my shirt into the laundry basket and walked toward the bathroom. As I reached for the faucet, I hesitated. There was that feeling again, that nagging sense that something wasn't quite right. I stood there, dripping with sweat and uncertainty, trying to shake off the irrational anxiety gnawing at me. Finally, I stepped into the shower, letting the hot water pour over me. The heat felt good, relaxing the muscles that had been tense for days. I closed my eyes, savoring the brief moment of peace, the steady rhythm of water against tile. For a few minutes, I let the steam and warmth carry me away. Then I heard it, a faint thud. I froze, my eyes snapping open. For a second, I thought I'd imagined it. Maybe it was just the pipes groaning, the house was old, after all. But then it came again. A soft, almost imperceptible sound. Thud. I turned off the water and listened, my heart starting to beat a little faster. It was coming from nearby. The hallway. No. Closer. Right outside the bathroom door. I wrapped a towel around my waist, feeling the rush of cold air as I stepped out into the steam-filled bathroom. The floor beneath my feet was wet, and as I looked down, I saw water pooling along the tile. And then I saw him, a man, naked, lying face down on the bathroom floor, partially hidden behind the door, his body still, limbs splayed awkwardly. For a moment, I couldn't process it. My mind refused to make sense of what I was seeing. The water trickled around him, mingling with something darker. Blood. A small pool, just starting to spread. I staggered backward, my breath catching in my throat. Who was he? How did he get here? The questions fired through my brain in rapid succession, but deep down, I already knew the answer. This wasn't just any stranger. This was Sarah's lover. A sharp wave of nausea hit me as I clutched the sink for support, staring at the lifeless body on the floor. My mind was spinning, trying to reconcile the mundane moments of my life with this surreal nightmare unraveling before my eyes. Sarah. I whispered hoarsely, but of course, she wasn't here. She hadn't been. I thought she was out with friends, but now I knew better. My stomach twisted as I imagined her here with him, in our home, in the bed we shared. I couldn't stay in the bathroom any longer. I backed out into the hallway, my towel slipping from my waist as I stumbled, leaving a trail of water in my wake. I felt dizzy, unsteady, as if the ground beneath me had shifted. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my mind running through every possibility, every scenario, trying to make sense of what had just happened. But there was no sense in it, no way to rationalize what was staring me in the face. Minutes passed, maybe hours, I couldn't tell. My body felt numb. That's when I heard it, the familiar jingle of keys in the front door. Sarah. My heart pounded in my chest as I sat bolt upright. I heard the door open, her soft footsteps moving through the house. She called out, her voice light, completely unaware of the horror that awaited her upstairs. "Hey, I'm home," she called, her voice echoing up the stairs. "Why's it so quiet in here?" "Are you home?" I said nothing. I couldn't. I was frozen, my hands trembling in my lap as I stared at the open bathroom door, at the horror lying just beyond. A few seconds later, Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs, her expression shifting from confusion to concern when she saw me sitting there, half-dressed, staring blankly ahead. "What's wrong?" she asked, taking a step forward. "Don't," I said, my voice low, barely more than a growl. "Don't come any closer." "What?" She paused, her brow furrowed in confusion. "What's going on?" I looked at her then, really looked at her. My wife. The woman I thought I knew. "There's something you need to see," I said, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "What are you talking about?" she asked, the nervous edge in her voice growing. "Go look," I said, pointing to the open bathroom door. She hesitated, her eyes flicking between me and the bathroom. Then, as if sensing something was horribly wrong, she slowly made her way to the door. The moment she saw him, the body, her face went white as a sheet. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She stepped back, one hand flying to her mouth in shock. "Oh my God." "No, no, no." I stood, my fists clenched at my sides, rage bubbling just beneath the surface. "You want to explain to me why there's a dead man in our bathroom, Sarah?" She turned to me, her eyes wide with fear and disbelief, her lips trembling as she struggled to find the words. I can explain," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Explain?" I snapped, my voice sharp as a knife. "How the hell do you explain this?" I gestured wildly toward the bathroom, toward the lifeless body of the man she had been with, the man who had somehow died in our home. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Instead, she just stared at me, her eyes filling with tears, as if there was anything left to cry about. The silence that filled the house was suffocating, thick with unspoken words and raw tension. Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, her face pale and tear-streaked, staring at the body sprawled across the bathroom floor. I could see the realization dawning on her, the horror of what she had been hiding crashing down around her. "Tell me this isn't happening," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What happened?" I demanded, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt like I was on the edge of a cliff, teetering precariously over a deep abyss. "How did he end up here?" "You have to give me something, Sarah." I didn't mean for this to happen," she stammered, her hands wringing together as she took a step back, as if trying to distance herself from the scene before her. "He slipped. I swear, it was an accident." "I didn't think he would." "Accident?" I interrupted, incredulous. "How do you accidentally end up with a dead man in our bathroom?" "Our bathroom, Sarah. Do you even hear yourself?" She took a shaky breath, her expression shifting from shock to fear. "I didn't plan this. We were just," she paused, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "I was going to break it off with him." "I swear, break it off." I scoffed, pacing back and forth. "You think that's going to fix this? You think that just because you wanted to end it, it makes everything okay? He's dead, Sarah. You're lying here, standing in front of me with your excuses while he lies in our bathroom." She took a step closer, desperation in her eyes. "Please, just listen to me. It was supposed to be over. I didn't want it to come to this." "Then what were you doing here?" I snapped, the anger bubbling over. "What were you doing with him in our house, in our bed?" "I don't know. It just happened," she cried, her voice rising in pitch. "I thought I could end things without you ever finding out. I thought he would just go away. I didn't want to hurt you." "Too late for that, don't you think?" I spat, my fists clenching as I fought against the rage threatening to consume me. The tears in her eyes spilled over, and she fell back against the wall, as if she needed something solid to hold her up. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, she whispered again, her voice breaking. You have to believe me, believe you. I could hardly contain the bitterness in my voice. How can I believe anything you say right now? You've spent who knows how long lying to me, hiding this. How am I supposed to trust you again after this? I made a mistake, she pleaded, shaking her head. I was lonely, and it was a stupid affair. But I never wanted it to go this far. Lonely? I repeated incredulously. You had me. You had a husband who cared for you. You threw it all away for what? A few moments of passion. It wasn't just about that, she exclaimed, her hands flailing in frustration. I thought I could manage it, keep it under control. But it spiraled out of control so fast. Control? I echoed, incredulous. You think you can just control these things? You think you can have an affair and it doesn't come with consequences? Sarah looked down, her voice dropping to a whisper. I know. I know I messed up. But please, just let me explain. I never wanted him dead. I didn't think he would fall. I didn't think he would. Stop. I yelled, cutting her off. Just stop. You need to understand the gravity of what's happened here. This isn't just a bad choice, this is a man's life. You don't get to play the victim here. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air, the truth settling like a lead blanket over us. I could see her crumbling, her facade of control slipping away. But I felt no sympathy. Only a deep, aching betrayal. I need you to leave, I said finally, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. Pack your things and get out. I can't look at you right now. What? Her eyes widened in disbelief. You can't be serious. I'm your wife. We can work through this. I love you, love. I scoffed, the word bitter on my tongue. You've destroyed that. You can't just throw that word around when you've done something so unforgivable. You need to go. Her breath caught, and for a moment, I thought she might argue, plead with me to reconsider. But then I saw the resignation in her eyes, the flicker of defeat that mirrored my own anguish. Where am I supposed to go? She asked softly, a hint of vulnerability breaking through her despair. I don't care, I said, my voice firm. You can find somewhere. Anywhere but here. She hesitated for a moment, and I could see the storm of emotions battling within her, guilt, fear, anger. Finally, she turned away, slowly walking toward the bedroom, and I knew she was going to start gathering her things. I stood there, my heart pounding, torn between the woman I loved and the stranger standing before me. This was the end. Everything we had built together was crashing down, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. I couldn't even bring myself to watch as she disappeared into the bedroom, as I turned to face the bathroom once more. A lifeless body lay on the floor, a haunting reminder of betrayal and choices that could never be undone. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me as I gazed at the mess Sarah had created, and I knew deep down that this was only the beginning of my fight for justice. The anger bubbled inside me, and I was no longer just a hurt husband, I was a man determined to uncover the truth, to expose the deception, and to ensure that the consequences of her actions didn't just fade into the shadows. The game had changed, and I was ready to play. I sat on the edge of the bed, the silence around me feeling like a suffocating blanket. My heart raced as I stared at the closed bathroom door, the weight of what had happened pressing down on me. The minutes dragged on, but Sarah didn't return. I could only imagine what she was doing in there, gathering her things, trying to make sense of this nightmare, or perhaps even crying over what she'd lost. Damn it, I muttered to myself, running my hands through my hair in frustration. I felt like a storm had rolled through my life, leaving destruction in its wake. I needed to get a grip, but the thought of her betrayal made me feel sick all over again. Suddenly, the bedroom door creaked open, and Sarah stepped back inside. She was carrying a small duffel bag, filled to the brim with clothes and other belongings. Her face was red and puffy from crying, and I could see she was struggling to keep her composure. Where are you going? I asked, my voice colder than I intended. I just need to figure things out, she replied, her voice shaky. I'll stay with my sister for now. She'll understand. I just need some time away from here. Time away. I echoed, disbelief tinging my voice. You think time will fix this? You think you can just walk away from this mess and expect it to be over? I'm not walking away. I'm trying to process everything, she insisted, her eyes pleading with me to understand. You have to realize how confused I am right now. Confused? I spat, standing up and taking a step toward her. You're confused. What about me? I came home to find a dead man in our bathroom, and you think that's confusing? You're the one who was having an affair. You put us in this situation, not me. I know, she cried, her voice rising. And I'm sorry. I didn't plan for any of this to happen. I never wanted him to die, right? I shot back, my anger flaring. Because that's the only thing you didn't plan for, right? The affair. That was perfectly fine until it blew up in your face. Her face crumpled as she took a step back, the accusation hitting her hard. Please, just try to see it from my perspective. I was lonely, and I made a terrible choice. I didn't think it would end like this. You didn't think, I said, my voice low and dangerous. That's the problem, Sarah. You didn't think at all. You were selfish. You put your needs above everything else, above me, above us. I know, she whispered, her voice trembling. I'm trying to take responsibility for what I did. But it's not just me in this situation. We were growing apart, and I didn't know how to fix it. I thought I could make myself feel better without hurting you, and look where that got you, I snapped. Now you're going to leave me with this mess. A dead man. A body I have to explain to the police. Do you realize the implications of what's happened here? Her eyes widened, the gravity of the situation finally dawning on her. I didn't think about that. I thought, exactly, I interrupted, my voice rising again. You didn't think. And now, we're both going to pay for your mistakes. You're the one who needs to face the consequences. You can't just run away. I'm not running away, she shouted, the frustration spilling over. I'm trying to figure out what to do. I'm scared, okay? I didn't know he would die. I didn't know any of this would happen. Scared? I laughed bitterly. You should be terrified. You've shattered everything we built. I can't just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen, Sarah. Neither can I, she retorted, her voice thick with emotion. But you need to understand, this isn't just about you anymore. This is about what I did, and I'm not proud of it. I hate myself for what happened, but I didn't kill him. It was an accident. I shook my head, my heart racing with a mix of anger and sorrow. I don't know if I can believe you anymore. How can I? You've lied to me for so long. What if this is just another lie? Her face fell, and for a moment, we stood in heavy silence, both of us grappling with the enormity of the situation. I could see the tears welling in her eyes again, and part of me felt a twinge of pity. But I quickly pushed that feeling aside. I couldn't allow myself to go there. Do you even care about what this means for us? I asked, my voice quieter now, but still strained with emotion. Of course I care, she said desperately. I love you. I just made a mistake, and now everything is falling apart. I never meant for any of this to happen. Love? I repeated, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. You say that, but you threw it away so easily. You've jeopardized our lives, our future, and now we have a dead body to deal with. Do you understand what's at stake? She glanced at the duffel bag in her hands, the realization of our shattered dreams sinking in. I know it's too late for excuses, she murmured, her voice softening. I don't know how to fix this. I can't even begin to understand what I've done. Maybe you can't fix it, I replied, my tone hardening again. Maybe some things are beyond repair. Maybe this is the end. Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears as she shook her head, the weight of my words crushing her. No. Please don't say that. I don't want it to end like this. But it already has, I said, my heart aching as I stepped back, the distance between us feeling like a chasm. You need to leave. I can't be around you right now. I need space to think, to process this. I can't do this with you here. She opened her mouth to argue, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she stood there, trembling, the weight of our shattered relationship hanging heavily in the air. Finally, she nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. Okay. I'll go. But please, just promise me you'll think about what I said. We can figure this out. I shook my head, feeling a sharp pain in my chest. I can't promise you anything right now, Sarah. I just need you to go. With one last pained look, she turned and walked toward the door. As she stepped outside, I felt the full weight of my heart breaking. I watched her disappear down the hallway, and the sound of the front door clicking shut echoed through the silence like a final nail in the coffin of our marriage. As the emptiness enveloped me, I sank down onto the edge of the bed, my hands shaking. I had lost everything in the span of a few hours, a wife, a future, a sense of normalcy. The reality of what had happened began to settle in, and in that moment, I knew I would never be the same again. I needed to gather evidence of Sarah's affair and the murder. I needed to expose the truth, to make her face the consequences of her actions. It was the only way to find closure. The anger surged within me, mingling with the despair, fueling a fire I couldn't extinguish. I would make her pay for what she'd done, and I would do it with every ounce of strength I had left. The next few days crawled by in a haze of grief and anger, each moment heavy with the weight of betrayal. I spent hours pacing our empty house, haunted by the echoes of Sarah's laughter and the memories of our once happy life. The silence was unbearable. It felt as if the walls themselves were closing in on me, suffocating me with the truth of what had happened. I didn't know where Sarah had gone, and part of me didn't care. I spent my time digging into her life, scouring through her things for clues, her phone, her laptop, anything that could point me to the truth. I felt like a detective in a noir film, piecing together the fragments of a shattered reality. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, I found myself sitting in front of her laptop, the screen illuminated with her social media accounts. I had always trusted her implicitly, but now I felt like I was looking at a stranger's life. I opened her messages, my heart racing as I scrolled through countless conversations. Most were mundane, filled with inside jokes and plans for dinner. But then, there they were, messages exchanged with the man who was now lying dead in our bathroom. My stomach twisted as I read through the intimate exchanges, the way she had flirted with him, the laughter they had shared. I felt bile rise in my throat. What did you expect? I muttered to myself, the anger surging like a tide. You're not innocent in this, Sarah. As the sun set, I decided I needed more than just messages. I needed concrete proof, something that could expose her for what she truly was. I needed a plan. Later that night, I found myself at a local bar, nursing a whiskey and contemplating my next move. I had called in a few favors from friends, trying to gather intel on the dead man and his connections to Sarah. It was time to confront her with everything I knew and force her to face the consequences of her actions. My phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. It was a text from Mike, an old friend who had worked with Sarah before she took her current job. Hey, I've heard some things about her and the guy. You need to meet me. I quickly texted back, agreeing to meet him at the bar. As I waited, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was about to step into a darker world, a world of lies, deceit, and revenge. Mike arrived shortly, sliding onto the stool next to me. You look like hell, man, he said, his brow furrowed with concern. Thanks for the compliment, I replied bitterly. What did you find out? Sarah was seeing him for a while, Mike began, lowering his voice. I know she thought it was just a fling, but it got serious. There were whispers around the office. People noticed she was acting differently. Differently how? I asked, leaning in. More distant. More secretive. It's like she was living a double life, he said, his eyes scanning the bar as if afraid someone might overhear us. And then there were rumors about him. Some people say he had a temper. He wasn't the kind of guy you want to cross. I felt a chill run down my spine. So she was involved with a dangerous man. That explains a lot. Listen, Mike said, taking a deep breath. I don't want to get too involved in this, but if you're thinking about confronting her, you need to be careful. Emotions are running high, and this could get messy. Messy? I echoed, my anger boiling beneath the surface. She's already made it messy, Mike. I'm not going to just sit back and let her get away with this. He placed a hand on my shoulder, his expression serious. Just think about what you're doing. Revenge isn't going to fix anything. Maybe not, I replied, my voice steely. But I need her to know that actions have consequences. I need to expose her, to show everyone who she really is. I get it, but be smart about this, he urged. You can't let your anger control you. I nodded, but deep down, the fire of vengeance was already burning bright. I couldn't let Sarah walk away unscathed. I wouldn't allow her to slip through my fingers while I was left to pick up the pieces of my shattered life. The following days were a blur of preparation. I started compiling evidence, screenshots of Sarah's messages with her lover, photos of them together, and any incriminating details I could find. Each piece of information felt like a victory, a small triumph against the overwhelming tide of betrayal that threatened to drown me. One evening, as I organized my findings, I decided it was time to confront her. I sent a message to Sarah, demanding she meet me at the coffee shop where we used to go. I needed her to see the evidence in person, to feel the weight of her actions crashing down on her. When she walked in, I could see the hesitation in her eyes. She looked different, more fragile than I remembered. Her hair hung limply around her face, and the light in her eyes seemed dimmed. But I pushed those thoughts aside. I couldn't afford to feel sympathy. Thank you for coming, I said, my voice flat as I gestured for her to sit. Is this about what happened? She asked cautiously, her eyes darting around the room. It's about what you did, I replied, leaning forward, my heart pounding with adrenaline. I know everything, Sarah. Her face paled, and she opened her mouth to respond, but I cut her off. I have screenshots of your messages with him. I have pictures of you two together. You think you can just sweep this under the rug and pretend it never happened? No, please, she stammered, her voice shaking. You don't understand. It was a mistake, a mistake. I echoed, my voice rising. A mistake would be forgetting to pick up milk from the store. This was a choice, a deliberate decision. You had an affair, and it ended with a man dead in our bathroom. I didn't want him to die. It was an accident. You have to believe me, she pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore, I shot back. But I know one thing, I'm not going to let you walk away from this without consequences. I'm going to tell everyone what you did. Your family. Our friends. They deserve to know the truth. Please don't do that, she cried, desperation spilling over. I can't take that kind of shame. It was a mistake I regret. I thought I could fix it. You can't destroy me like this. Why not? I asked, my voice icy. You destroyed me first. You destroyed everything we had. I love you, she shouted, the words spilling out like a last-ditch effort to salvage what was left. I made a horrible mistake, but I don't want to lose you. We can fix this together. We can. No, I interrupted, shaking my head vehemently. There's no fixing this. You've crossed a line I can't come back from. You took our life, our trust, and threw it away for a fling. You made your choice, and now you'll have to live with the consequences. Her expression crumbled, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of doubt creeping in. Was I doing the right thing? But then I thought of the man lying cold and lifeless in our bathroom. I thought of the betrayal, the lies. No, this was necessary. Please, she whispered, her voice breaking. Don't do this. Just give me a chance to make it right. I stood up, my resolve hardening. It's too late for that, Sarah. I'll be sending everything I have to our friends and family. I want everyone to see you for who you really are. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her sitting there, tears streaming down her face. As I stepped out into the cool evening air, a sense of liberation washed over me. The storm inside me was far from over, but I was ready to unleash it. I had made my choice, and now it was time for her to face the consequences of hers. Revenge was no longer just a thought, it was a promise I intended to keep.